The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
The 0-2, swing and a miss, strike three, blew it past it.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
And you got your honey mustard?
I love mustard.
With Ted Hicks, Todd Vandenberg, and Vowell.
Well, big deal. I am very professional.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball Beer and Barbecue with Facebook. Follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ and read us on our blog site, baseballbeerbbq.com, and find out even more info at thehappyhournetwork.com. We will be joined in just a bit by Max Rieper, editor of SB Nation's Kansas City Royals site, Royals Review. Max has been on several times, always a great guest. And he'll have AL Central in general and the Royals specifically. So still waiting for Ted, but Todd is on. Todd, how are you?
I am
Todd,
quite lovely, as always. I'm lovely as always. Am I here? Am I unmuted? I should be unmuted.
You are unmuted and you are talking wildly. So, as always, we'd like to thank NGSE Sports, I-95 Sports Network, Back Sports Page, RF Sports, XRP Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Arena Sports Network, and who else do we always have a special shout-out to, Todd?
We have a special shout-out to our special friends who fix things that are broken. Computer Repair NC at CJ Computers NC on the Twitter. 919-653-8496. If you are in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, if you are in the Carolinas, if you are on the eastern seaboard of the United States, if you are in the Milky Way, and if you are the Star-Lord and your Walkman Sony personal audio device is broken, Computer Repair NC, I'm sure they could even handle that for you. So thank you once again to the fine people that answer the phone at 919-653-8496.
And that's our show. So again, thanks to CJ Computers NC for being on. And no, so let's talk news and notes, of course, before we get to baseball. We got a lot of stuff to talk about with baseball, as pitchers and catchers are now reporting.
What
negatives of the sports world? Yeah, Peyton Manning accused, not really accused of anything new as far as sexual harassment. It's more of a rehashing of what happened in 1996. But it seems to, because he's retired, has made huge waves, because there's an article that says, Tennessee has had this whole culture of sexual harassment, and maybe it has, and he's part of a Title IX lawsuit that's being directed at the university right now, as part of several players, not just himself, but part of a whole culture, as I said. If you lived in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, this isn't. Obviously, the facts could be a little different, but it's not new news either way. So basically, what he says happened was that he mooned. He was mooning someone else, another male player, not a football player, but someone in track and field, and that help me out. What's the verbiage I'm looking for? A trainer, basically, female trainer, was helping him. Well, female, yes, but she was a trainer. She wasn't just randomly in the locker room. She was working. That he did that, and it was close to her, and yada, 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 and she felt, for whatever reason, rightfully, wrongfully, whatever, she felt that was inappropriate. Of course, now what she says happened is different from what Peyton said. He was just mooning the person. She says that it was much worse, basically, that he sat down on top of her. He was nude, of course, front and back. I don't know what happened. I mean, obviously there was a settlement out of court. He wrote about it in his book in 2003. I don't know why he would write about it, which is weird. But he basically said she had a foul mouth. Probably shouldn't have brought it up at all, Peyton, if you're smart in that direction. Right. But probably shouldn't have brought it up. But what are your feelings? Is this just because this is a lawsuit? It just seems to be timed at the end of his career. How does it tarnish his career? And other thoughts, Todd?
I don't think it tarnishes his career, because I thought it was funny that it's like, this is huge news. It's like, this is really, really, really old news. And I can understand that maybe people don't remember it, because they're not in the Knoxville area, and frankly, it wasn't that big a story when it happened. And if he did what she claims, obviously it's an awful thing. I don't remember her making those claims at the time, though. Do you remember that? I'm not saying she didn't. I just don't remember her version was that much worse at the time. All I remember is basically
I think that's
version.
a big point. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's I don't know,
no.
Go on, obviously, but I think that's a big point because, you know, we heard about it when it happened or soon thereafter, and I don't remember anything being said like that. And maybe there is a cover-up. Maybe that's part of it. We didn't hear that what really happened, quote unquote, really happened. It may have happened.
Absolutely,
absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And that could have been part of, well, because it's a pending lawsuit and they couldn't make the specific allegations, you know, that could have been part of the terms of settlement. I totally understand all that. It absolutely could have happened the way she says, but I don't remember that version ever coming out at the time, which is why it wasn't that big a story at the time. Obviously, if that's what happened, it's a pretty awful thing, but it's kind of weird. If you settled on it, then okay, so how are you sticking with the legal sensibilities of it? But I mean, if she was actually assaulted, obviously something needs to happen. Something really bad needs to happen, or something just, let me put it that way, needs to happen to Peyton, if that's true. But it's odd that, like you said, it's like, oh, now he's the pending retirement and blah, 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 so now it's a bigger story again. But it's not a new story, you know, that's just kind of odd. As far as the overall pervasive culture of sexual harassment going on at UT, is an incoming defensive lineman, or was he a freshman last year? I can't remember which the deal was, but I mean,
the
was another sexual assault.
He was a junior college transfer. He just got on campus. Yeah.
Right. No, are you kidding me? It's like, what the hell is going on with these guys? And it's certainly not just Tennessee, not at all. But I mean, it's been much more high profile lately at UT since they lost the guy would have been a first-round pick of the NFL, and those charges are still pending. The trial starts, September, I think, is what they're talking about?
Right.
For Johnson?
Right.
So, you know, obviously they have issues that need to be addressed. And from what I've read, I'm sure from what you've read, Butch Jones, head coach of the football team, is addressing it, but it goes much further than just football, as the suit makes clear. It's not just football. I mean, Peyton Manning is the face of men's Tennessee sports, certainly, so that's why, and he did do something at least, so of course that's why he's the face of this story. But as far as his particular part of it, yeah, it seems much more like let's grab some headlines. It's an attention-grabbing thing, but hopefully, for her sake, more than anything, I hope his version is the truth, because that would be pretty awful if she went through that from her version of it. But it would be nice if there's a third party, and obviously there's got to be a third party, several third parties, you would think, who witnessed this, and they would be honest and say what would happen. So,
and it could be, and I don't know the legal ramifications. I don't know if it's one of these things where if it's a different lawsuit, like they settled, yes, but I don't know if that means she couldn't ever have been not part of a future lawsuit if it was like more of a class action thing where it was a group of people. I'm not sure how that works, to be honest. But yeah, let's move on. Manny Pacquiao, of course, a great human being that he is, said on Filipino television station earlier this week, of course he's a Christian, quote unquote. He said, literally, quote unquote, "Have you seen any animal having male-to-male or female-to-female relations? If you have male-to-male or female-to-female relationships, then people are worse than animals." Okay. You know, this is one of these things where it's like it's now. I believe actually Ted may be on with us. Let's see. But yeah, if it's Manny Pacquiao, of course he said things like this before. You know, a couple years ago he said something about homosexual culture. Ted, hopefully you're there. Ted is not there. Ted is muting himself. Todd, you're still there. Todd, what are your thoughts on Manny Pacquiao's comments this week?
Aside from the totally human nature of the stupidity of his comments, he's stupid to say this because those are terrible viewpoints, but he's also ignorant because homosexuality in the animal world is actually pretty common. It's about as common as it is in people, which is why it's part of nature, which is why it's not a sinful thing. I mean, there have been lots of studies done, and if he wasn't fucking ignorant, excuse the language, but he's fucking ignorant, like unfortunately a lot of people are. I don't know, maybe pay attention when you go to school. About 10% of the population of almost any animal population, homosexuality is like, that's kind of how nature rolls. So that's kind of how some people roll, and that's okay. And even if he was correct in his statement, which he isn't, because he's ignorant, it would still be wrong because we are different than animals, aren't we? So actually, we're better than animals because, we have a little bit more going on. We actually have a mind, and we can choose to do things we want to do. So if it was a choice, it would be okay. And it's not a choice anyway, so, Manny, shut the hell up. And what's really a big problem, of course, is not that, because he's a boxer. He is a political figure. He's in the legislature. He's running for a bigger seat. It's like, and here you have another one of these insane people with their horrible, homophobic, screwed-up views who is going to have some say in the law, and that's a really bad thing. So just go back and fake your way through another fight and don't live up to your money. So, go to hell with your idiotic views.
Yeah, and one thing he did say to go on, he in his defense, he did say the next statement was, but some trees, some foliage actually perpetuates its own species by pollinating itself. So what I want to say is it's animals, then humans, then trees. I really hate trees. That's what he said. That was the whole thing. So it's one of those things.
He should do what trees do to themselves. Then he should repopulate himself the way some trees do.
He's Filipino. I don't think he has the attributes to do that. So I've just insulted all Filipinos. I apologize to Roman Catholic faith. So the Trailblazers. Person. Yeah, exactly. Ted was there. Now he's not there. Ted should see. He's holding out for more money. So the Trailblazers last night. I don't know if you saw this, Todd. The Trailblazers crushing the Warriors. Almost said the Royals, which they should have if they were playing a basketball game. But anyway, they beat the Warriors. Yes. 137. Alex Gordon had 57. I have no idea. But anyway, the Trailblazers beat the Golden State Warriors 137-105. Damian Lillard had 51 points, 9 3-pointers in 31 minutes. The Warriors themselves had 13 turnovers in the third quarter. Is this one of these things where it's just like crap happens? Who cares? Or are the Warriors just okay? Go ahead.
The Warriors are done. The Warriors are done. They'll win 3 more games the rest of the season. They'll miss the playoffs. Yeah, of course, it's just one of those things. Crap happens. I mean, how could you possibly look at the body of work as like, this is the 5th game they've lost. It's like throw up our hands as a disaster. It's like crap happens. It's just maybe their biorhythms were all off and who cares? I mean, it's a story, and it's an interesting story because how did this team possibly lose by that much? But it happens.
Yeah,
that's why no one's saying bets on sports.
And actually, after the game, the Warriors did trade for Damian Lillard, so now they have him on the team. So that's what they're doing. Their whole plan is to, this guy scores on us, we will now bring him in to the team. So the Warriors actually have 40 players on their team, which is one reason they're still just 3 games over the Spurs, which is crazy when you think about it, because they've been so dominant all year long. Moving on to the primaries, of course, we have primary and a caucus today, South Carolina and Nevada. According to Huffington Post polls, which they don't do the polls themselves. I mean, it's a reputable source. HuffPost pollster tracks thousands of public polls. So basically what they do is they gather information from lots of different polls. Yes, HuffPost, if you go there, Huffington Post. So anyway, overall, nationally, which means nothing, of course, because each state has its own delegates, and that's how they'll decide who's going to run for each party. But the Republican primary nationally has Trump at 38 and Ted Cruz at 18, which is crazy. And then the Democrats it's actually getting closer. We got 49% Clinton, 42% Sanders, and again, that's nationally. So today, of course, we have South Carolina, and that's 34-19 right now, Trump over Cruz, 58-33 and South Carolina, Clinton over Sanders. So it appears that Clinton and Trump will win that. And then Nevada, actually Clinton has increased her lead since last week. Last week I think we were talking it was 45-45. Now it's 51-47 Clinton over Sanders. Has twice as much as Ted Cruz, 42-21. Of course, a lot of things will be decided next on the 1st when we have Super Tuesday. Let's see if Ted's actually with us now. Who knows? Ted, are you there?
I am here. Were you guys looking for me?
You know what? Maybe a little bit, 15 minutes ago. Actually, more like 45 minutes ago. But, hey, Ted's holding out for more money. We get it. So, anyway, Ted, welcome to the show. And we already did the Who We Think.
No problem. I want to say thank you to our radio partners. And wait, you did that section already, right?
Yeah, we did that an hour ago. So
Ted is such a creature of habit.
Yeah, so far we have basically covered Peyton Manning, Manny Pacquiao, and the Warriors getting blown out last night by the Trailblazers. Any comments on those three topics?
Manny Pacquiao? Nah, I'm not touching that one. That one is C4. Peyton Manning. Come on, Peyton. Go be a president for someone, and also come clean with that situation that everyone's talking about. And the Warriors getting blown out. Hey, they're coming back to the planet Earth, and I'd never seen Steph Curry get scorched like that last night. Damian Lillard really put it on him, and they're going to notice 72-10. That record isn't that easy to achieve. They're going to notice because everyone's going to play them tough every night, and they can't be off.
Right, and their second half schedule is pretty tough, and as we mentioned, they're just still 3 games over the Spurs, which is crazy when you think about how great the Warriors have been.
No.
So, anyway, we go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Are they on par with the Bulls right now? Because I know they were a little bit ahead of the Bulls at this current time. Are they on par right now?
Yeah, they're still a little bit ahead, but their schedule doesn't. It's not favorable. I mean, it's they have some tough road games and things like that. They should still, with the current landscape of the NBA, it's the regular season. The Warriors obviously are the champs, and they're a great team, but I don't know. I don't know if the NBA is better now than it was when the Bulls did their thing, or if the Bulls' time was better. I mean, I remember the game's changed. It's so much more like score.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, just one last thing.
Go ahead, Ted.
Just one last comment. If the Warriors were playing the Nets another 15 times, then I would say 72-10 is no problem. All right, Todd, sorry.
I was going to say, so far they've been playing the Washington Generals, but they're stepping up. They're going to play the Happy Hour Network next, so
that's right.
It's going to be a tough row.
Hey, I'll be honest. I was totally shocked by the defense-dominated NBA All-Star game. That was crazy.
God.
Wow.
I mean, when they wanted to shut down Paul George at the end so he wouldn't get that scoring record, it was crazy. What was that? Just let the
lame.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't know anything about it. That's a lie. Of course they knew. They put 3 guys on him. That was ridiculous. Who cares? I didn't know who had the scoring record, and now nobody will remember probably in 2 years that Paul George has the scoring record. Let the guy have his fun.
2 weeks.
I tried to tell Danny on Monday how horrible the game was, and how they have to change it right now. It's almost on the level of the Pro Bowl, and he fought me tooth and nail, and I just said, okay, I give up.
One team scored 196 points.
Yeah.
Sounds ridiculous.
How is that interesting to watch layup and? Yeah, you're watching layup and dunk drills. That's not entertaining.
I mean, when one team has 154 points and going into I think there was 10 minutes left, right? And
yes.
And there is an actual question of whether they're going to score 200, and it's like, they may, and you really think they're going to score 46 points in 10 minutes, but they almost did it. That was ridiculous. It was a little bit crazy. It's like that's just playground ball. It was like when the time I went and I saw it was the middle of summer, and I know I've told you guys this story before, but it was the middle of summer. It was a pickup game, and it was at Carolina, and Ralph Sampson was there, Michael Jordan was there, Kenny Smith was there. They weren't playing defense; they were just running up and down, and that's exactly what that game was like. And it was just like a pickup game. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so back. Go ahead.
I was just going to say pickup game. If it's at a schoolyard, you would see more defense.
That's true. That's a good point. Actually,
that was
true.
so bad.
Lee, Todd, it was like playing NBA 2K on your Xbox.
It was
on the rookie setting.
On a rookie setting, yes.
That's true.
That's exactly what it was.
So, some interesting things coming up in the primaries, and we won't spend a lot of time on this because we want to move on to other things. But Florida, of course, that's now Todd's home state, and Todd can now vote in Florida. I'm assuming you got your voter registration card in Florida.
I didn't.
I'm at this point.
I have 5. I have 5 voter registration cards. I'm ready.
Well, you are in South Florida. The Florida Republican is 40-19, Trump over Cruz, 62-26. Clinton over Sanders, huge discrepancy. California is actually kind of interesting, though. Cruz actually leads Trump in California. I don't know why. But Clinton is a little bit ahead, 11 points over Sanders. Of course, that can. And Colorado is another interesting. Do you guys have any idea who's leading? And sorry, because just looking at it makes me laugh. But do you guys have any idea who is first and second in Colorado right now? I'll take that as
who? Kasich and Bloomberg?
I believe it's Vermin Supreme is in Colorado on both tickets.
It's funny. It's Ben Carson has a 6-point lead over Marco Rubio right now in Colorado.
God help them.
I would ask what they're smoking in Colorado, but we already know the answer to that.
That could be it. That could be it.
Yeah, maybe that's it. So, and one other one, of course. Kentucky, the Republican Presidential Caucus. That one may be a little easier. Who do you think still, of course, according to HuffPost, has the lead in that state?
Mitch McConnell.
Actually,
right.
It's funny because they do have the approval ratings, and McConnell is way down. Everybody's way down. Paul actually still leads in Kentucky, 26%.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
would make sense in Kentucky.
Anyway, that is your.
He's officially out of the race. I'm sorry. He suspended his campaign. They never quit. They just suspend it. I'm coming back in 2024. He's like, yeah, you go. Just suspend it for now.
Exactly. So, anybody watch the Grammys at all? Did somebody watch it? I didn't.
Did any black people get nominated so that there's something to talk about?
Yeah, the Grammys. Yeah, you know.
It's the anti-Oscars. I watched maybe a third of the Grammys.
Okay. And Ted, did you watch any? I didn't.
Not at all.
Yeah, I never watched the Grammys.
I was somewhat entertained. I thought. I assume you caught Lady Gaga's, like on YouTube or something. You caught her tribute to Mr. Bowie.
Yeah, I caught it on YouTube. Right. Yeah, a little bit of it, not all of it.
And what did you two? What did you two think of her tribute?
I thought she did an okay job. I mean, I don't listen to her music, but I respect what she's trying to do. I thought it was okay. It was a kind of a weird choice. I mean, you could have had a lot of better choices. You know, you don't have. This is a new pop star. Let's do a newish pop star. Could have had. You know, when they had the tribute to several years ago, but they had Bruce Springsteen was out there. I mean, they played London Calling. That's really what they should have done to me. They should have just had people play a couple.
I was
just
going to say. They had, and Gaga I think was a great choice, and she did really well. But she should have done at most 2 songs, really one, because they had a tribute to B.B. King too, and they played 1 song, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. That's what they should have done for Bowie. She did great, but it was just, let me cram in 20. Like, why are you doing a medley of 10 songs? I think literally it was 10. That's insane. That is so stupid.
That is.
Just do one freaking song and do it right. The B.B. King tribute was fantastic.
But don't just have one person. I mean, have, like I said, with the Clash, you know, it was like a group. I mean, maybe they should have just had Coldplay do it because that's as close as they're going to get to a Bowie song.
What?
Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
No. You guys are dead on, but nothing for Natalie Cole? Come on.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, you got one black person. You got B.B. King, Ted. Come on.
I guess that's a quota, right?
That's right.
Stanley
That's
Park,
right.
Bonnie Raitt, and I can't think of his first name, but Staple, and they did a fantastic job on the B.B. King tribute. They were great.
That's awesome.
And that's what they should have done with Bowie. So check that out on the YouTubers.
Yeah. And that's your quota. A quota and $1 gives you $1.25. So, anyway, pitchers and catchers reporting. Pitchers and catchers reporting everywhere. Today, actually, as soon as the show is over, I'm going to head just west here to see the Angels, who are expected to do crap, according to Baseball Prospectus. And then tomorrow, I will be, lucky that I am, surprisingly, the Mariners and Padres share a camp. And the Dodgers are right down the road, so I'll be driving over there tomorrow morning to catch the Mariners, maybe the Padres, I don't know. Who cares? And then the Dodgers, so I'll split my time over there, so I'm looking forward to that. Tony Phillips passes away, 56. Todd, do you have a comment?
It really made me sad to see that, obviously, because he's so young. That's younger than me. And it's like in one little article, I didn't read the article, but it was just kind of a blurb about how he was like the first Mr. Versatility, which, okay, he wasn't the first. But he was kind of the first, I don't know if you'd say superstar, but kind of a superstar utility player. And it's like, it's just really sad to see him gone, because to me he was a big part of why baseball is so cool, because it is one of those few sports where if you have at least, the basic skills, you can still play a lot of positions, much more so than even basketball, let alone football. And so in a lot of ways, to me, he represented a lot of the things that's really great about baseball. So it's and of course, since he was a Tiger for, several weeks of his multi-team career, yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, it's just kind of like, God, that really sucks. Tony Phillips is gone. That's one of those things that's not right, Been a lot of really, really, really crummy deaths early this year.
Yes, there has, and it's only the 20th of February. We're going to skip over a couple of things, save them for next week. The show, we will have a show next week. We're hoping to have a really special guest who's not baseball related. Hopefully Todd will be able to accomplish that. But we're definitely looking forward to that. Just to pique somebody's interest, which means we probably won't have a guest at all next week. No, I'm kidding. We're really trying to get a good guest. But actually, what we're going to do is save a couple of things for the end of the show, because at this point we actually would now like to welcome Max Rieper to the program. Max is editor of Kansas City Royals site Royals Review, which for some reason I always butcher. I used to not be able to say my R's when I was younger, honestly. So I'm not sure if Max knew that when he was born, and he just hates me. So it's Royals Review, and his name is Max Rieper. But I apologize if I butcher the R's. Max has been with us several times before, and he's always a great guest. So Max, thanks for being on with us again today. And how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. And sorry about the alliteration with the website title.
No problem. It was just like it's going to be Royals Review for me the whole time, because that's how I used to say my R's when I was like 6 years old. So anybody that's like listening, they're like, "Oh, the guess is great," but that one guy trying to say the name is an idiot. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll save the Royals for the end. Questions for them, and we'll have a couple of questions for each team. But I want to start with Chicago, the White Sox. Of course, Todd Frazier is the big off-season pickup. Plenty of other new faces, Matt Latos and Brett Laurie. What do you expect from the new faces for the White Sox?
Yeah, I thought they had a really interesting off-season, because you kind of thought they would do more. I know there's like talk about them getting an outfielder like Justin Upton or Dexter Fowler, Alex Gordon. And I think they had the Todd Frazier pickup, which is a good pickup, I thought. But I think it still left a lot of White Sox fans underwhelmed with what they did this offseason. It's kind of curious. I think the Frazier trade makes their defense a little bit better, because he's a solid defender at third, where they had a lot of problems with Connor Gillespie last year. But on the other hand, they acquire Brett Laurie and move him over to second base. And they move their, Tyler Saladino, who played some third base last year. I guess they're moving him over to shortstop. So it seems like the defensive alignment is going to be a little bit wanting. And right now we're seeing teams get pretty heavily penalized for having poor defenses last year. I think a poor defense is what cost the White Sox a lot last year. It cost the Indians, cost a few other teams. Padres didn't perform well because their defense was pretty terrible. So it's an interesting move to try to go in that direction. But, they've got some talent. The pitching looks really good with Chris Sale. I'm a big fan of Jose Quintana and Carlos Rodon. I think those guys will be pretty solid. I like the Latos signing a lot. I know he's had some clubhouse issues everywhere he's gone, but it's a low-cost signing, so if he turns out to be a pain in the butt, you can always, cut him in June without being, out too much money. So I kind of like what they're doing, but I still think they have a lot of ground to catch up to be up there, competing for the Central Division title. And I still have a lot of questions with their defense. I mean, they still have Melky Cabrera and Avi Garcia on the corners, and those are two guys that are kind of butchers with the glove out there. So, it's interesting that a lot of teams are following the Royals' template of bullpen and defense, and the White Sox have really gone in the opposite direction. And so we'll see if that's maybe that more successful strategy. But I'm not counting on them quite yet. I know USA Today picked them to be first place in the Central, but I'm not on that bandwagon quite yet.
Yeah, you mentioned they're going the opposite way. It's almost like they're still. You remember that time in 2005, I think, when they won the World Series and they never threw a relief pitcher? Let's stick with that for the next century. But and talking about their staff, of course, you already mentioned Chris Sale and Rodon. They could really be a very quality starting staff, and they're relying so much on the starting staff. Do you think they are good enough, that starting rotation, to lead Chicago to a division title? The rotation itself is very good. I think it's one of the best in the league. But, yeah, I don't know if it's enough to carry kind of a lackluster defense, a lineup that's very top-heavy. Jose Abreu's, obviously one of the best sluggers in the league. And then they've got a couple of other decent hitters, but it falls off pretty quickly after that. And then the bullpen is a bunch of a lot of young guys, a lot of reclamation projects. David Robinson is very good in the nines, but they've had some trouble getting the ball to him. So, I don't know if it's enough to carry the weight. And especially since we've seen starting pitching be less and less important over the last couple of years, it seems like, with bullpens taking more precedent. Maybe they've got some good young relievers that will take a step forward. I think they do have good depth in their rotation, adding Latos and Eric Johnson's kind of a young rookie that could be pretty decent for them. But as far as carrying a team that has lots of other holes, I don't think it's good enough to kind of take them where they need to be.
Max, how you doing? This is Ted dialing in from our New York affiliate office. I get to ask you about the Cleveland Indians, which we will be visiting on August 13th. The 1-2 punch of Carrasco and Clubber, and with Salazar, he's not that far behind. Could it be a holy trinity with the three of them? Do you think the staff can repeat their overall performance or even be better?
Yeah, I think that's one of the best young rotations in the league. Obviously they strike tons of hitters out, more than anyone else in the league. I think more than anyone else in baseball. There's a lot of talk about them maybe trading one of those guys to get an outfield bat, which they didn't do. It would be like a Todd Frazier, but they never did that. So they had kind of a curious offseason as well, because it seems like they've been kind of the darling in the preseason for the Central Division the last couple of years because of that pitching staff. And yet we've kind of seen them underachieve in the regular season. So I thought maybe they'd make a big move this winter to kind of push them over the hump, and they didn't really do that. I think the pitching staff misses a lot of bats, which helps because their defense wasn't good last year. They did upgrade their defense a lot, I think, in this offseason by just having Francisco Lindor on the field all season. And he's one of the best defensive shortstops in the game, I think. Probably see him win a Gold Glove this year. And then I think moving some other guys like Lonnie Chisenhall, they moved him to the outfield, which will help because he was pretty underwhelming at third base. And getting Carlos Santana off the field, maybe DHing him more, I think that'll help the defense a lot with Mike Napoli at first base instead. So they've been kind of they were in the cover of Sports Illustrated a couple of years ago and didn't live up to that hype. And then last year they weren't really in it. So I think this might be the year they actually do kind of break through, and because that pitching staff is so good, you figure, you asked me if can the White Sox, have their pitching staff carry them. I don't think it can, but I think the Indians, they don't have as much to carry. I think their lineup is pretty good with some good young hitters like Santana, Lindor, and I think the defense is going to be a lot better, and their bullpen's really good. So I think they're a team that could take a big step forward. I see them as one of the biggest threats in the Central for the Royals right now, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them if they do make the postseason, see them make a run with that pitching staff.
Hey, Max, this is Todd, and my task is happy for me because my favorite team is the Motor City Kitties. So kind of the flip side of the Indians. I mean, the Tigers' pitching was awful last year. They got 50 more runs than any other team in the league. Do you see any hope that beyond the pickup of Zimmerman and Verlander's rebound, do you see any hope for that staff?
Yeah, I like the Zimmerman pickup a lot. I mean, they obviously paid a lot of money to get him, but at least they got a really good pitcher out of it. And you're right, but there's a lot of ground to make up. That starting pitching staff, I think, was dead last in the league in ERA out of starters last year, and they lose David Price. I think people forget that they had David Price for most of the year last year.
Right.
So there's a lot of ground to make up. Now, there were some encouraging signs out of Justin Verlander later in the year. Anibal Sanchez, I guess, is presumably healthy, and they can get maybe better performance from him. I like Daniel Norris a lot as a young pitcher that can help them out. But yeah, like there's a lot of upgrades that need to be made, and the bullpen has really been the big weak spot for them the last couple of years, and I didn't really see a lot of big moves to shore that up. I mean, they got a little bit of depth with like Justin Wilson and Mark Lowe, but I don't know that and Francisco Rodriguez, I guess, we'll see if he has anything left in the tank, but it's certainly, when you stack it up against other top bullpens in the league, it's going to be well short of that. And so, they have the great lineup. Justin Upton's going to be a huge impact in that lineup. They're going to score a lot of runs. It's a little right-handed heavy, but I think that's probably okay in this division. But I think the pitching staff's going to probably ultimately end up being their Achilles heel again. They'll probably end it. I think they'll make a big step forward and be back as contenders, at least for a wild card or maybe even the division. But I think ultimately they still have some holes to fill in that pitching staff.
Well, bless you for the hopeful talk on their possible contention. And you're right, it's not exactly the bullpen that you have with your team. You mentioned Upton and that you think he's going to have a big impact. You see him having how is it going to be more than just a stat line? Because I think back to the time of when Gibson really came through for the Tigers, and of course was a huge impact with the Dodgers, and it wasn't the stat line. Can he be one of those guys where, I mean, they obviously have great hitters, but can he be the guy that really gets their offense going enough and gets the whole team going?
I don't know. I think still Miguel Cabrera is still going to be the straw that stirs that drink. Right. I don't know where he's going to hit. I don't know where Upton's going to hit in the lineup. I presume he probably hit maybe fifth after Cabrera, so that he might provide some better protection for Miggy. And I don't know what kind of guy he is in the clubhouse, or if he's a guy that's really a rah kind of guy that can get guys going. So we'll have to see. I don't know. I know defensively he's had a little bit of a decline the last couple of years, which could hurt Detroit because they made some improvements defensively last year, and hopefully his glove doesn't take away from his bat too much. But he's a great hitter. I mean, there's no getting around that. He's young. He's not a guy that they signed in his late 30s that's going to fall off a cliff immediately. He's going to be a good hitter for them for the next couple of years. And you put him with Miguel Cabrera and J.D. Martinez, who doesn't seem to be a fluke anymore. I think we can conclusively say he's a really good hitter now. And I think you can probably expect some bounce back with Victor Martinez. So you look at the middle of that lineup, and there's really no one in the Central that can boast a heart of a lineup like that. So they're going to have the advantage there for sure. It's really, I think it's just going to come down to can they keep other teams off the scoreboard, and that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's there's no bad teams in the Central really. I mean, they're all pretty competitive, and the Royals, even Baseball Perspective, for no reason has them picked last, in my opinion. We'll get to them in just a second, but Minnesota made a big jump last year. A lot of kind of like the Royals. I mean, they've had such a good farm system for a long time, and now we're seeing Byron Buxton kind of, this is the year he could really break out. Of course, Sano he's going to crush the ball. Do you think Minnesota's season last year was kind of a fluke as well as they did, or do you expect them to even be better because their young players are maturing?
Yeah, it is remarkable how I think it's the depth in the Central Division. I did see Minnesota a little bit fluky last year. I think they kind of outperformed their run expectation last year. And Paul Molitor's I think he's shown himself to be a pretty good manager. But they do have some young talent. I think there's a lot of reason for Twins fans to be excited. So no, I mean we got to see him a little bit late in the end of last year. I mean the guy looks like a beast out there with light tower power. So I think he's going to step in pretty easily and be able to hit in the middle of that lineup. I guess my question is, how do they make all those pieces fit? Because they've got him, they've got the Korea free agent they signed, Byung-Ho Park. They've got Joe Mauer, who's kind of entrenched at first base now, and then they've got some other young pieces on the corners, but I don't know how all those guys are going to fit. Get them all, how they're going to get them all playing time. And like I said, so that kind of feeds into like how is their defense going to play. And like I said, we've seen defense be more and more important the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform. I think they've got some guys that kind of slumped at the end of last year, like Brian Dozier and Trevor Plouffe, that could rebound a little bit. I like Byron Buxton a lot. He's rather young, and he was kind of unimpressive in a cup of coffee last year, but I think he's a guy that could be I think he'll be a future All-Star, but we may not see that this year. It may take him some time to kind of step into those shoes. So I think it'll be kind of a learning year, kind of a building year for them. I think they have a lot of work to do on their pitching staff. They've got a lot of low strikeout guys that in this day and age, it's kind of like living life on the edge. Guys like Mike, or I guess they don't have Puffer anymore, but they have like Irvin Santana and Ricky Nolasco and Kyle Gibson. They're all kind of low strikeout guys, and I think it's going to cause some problems for them. So, they've got a good nucleus to build around, a good base. I think if they add around that, add with some around those hitters with a good pitching staff, and I think they can absolutely be contenders in the next year or two.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, they are so young at hitting. Again, we're talking to Max Rieper of Royals Review, and you hinted at the pitching. I mean, is that's what's going to hold them back from maybe winning this division this year?
Yeah, I think so. You look at their pitching staff, and they're not terrible pitchers, but they're all kind of below average, kind of underwhelming guys. And the problem is they've got so much money tied up in those. I mean, they've got Phil Hughes, Irvin Santana, and Ricky Nolasco, who are all making, I think, over $10 million per year. That's a lot of money they sunk into three, fairly replaceable guys. And they've got some young arms they're coming up to the system that could be up pretty soon. So I don't think it's it's hopeless or anything. But like I said, I think they can be a contender in the next couple of seasons. We could see them as maybe the next Royals team that kind of builds a young core and then has success at the major league level. But the older veteran guys right now, I think are going to be kind of problematic as they keep trotting them out there. It's going to be when we see the next crop of young Twins pitchers that they finally have some success.
And the ultimate Mets fan gets to ask the Kansas City Royals question. World champion Kansas City Royals. So all we heard, Max, was about defense and pitching, but the Royals did finish 6th in runs scored. Do you see other teams following their hitting philosophy, or is it just really the right system for this ballpark?
I haven't. That's a good question. I thought maybe I would have seen more of that, but and I also take a deeper dive at it. But as far as I can tell, I haven't seen too many teams or any teams really specifically look for high contact guys the way the Royals did. And I think you're right. I think you kind of implied it's kind of the Royals fit their ballpark so well. I don't think it's a strategy that could work in like Yankee Stadium or a lot of other ballparks. So because the Royals have such a big, spacious park, it's the hardest home run park in the American League, and they have those deep alleys that provide good incentive to hit doubles and triples. So I think that fits the Royals to a glove. So it's a team that they did finish 6th in runs scored last year. I would expect a little regression, to be honest, just because they had so many guys that had career seasons last year. Guys like Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas and Lorenzo Cain and even Kendrys Morales. They all kind of had career years last year that I would not bet on them duplicating those performances. But, if the starting pitching is a little bit better, if the bullpen continues to be good, if the defense continues to be good, I don't think the offense has to be great for them to still be successful, but they certainly can have a huge drop-off in performance. And we've seen a lot of variability with some of these performances. Like Eric Hosmer was great last year, but he was terrible in 2014. Mike Moustakas was great in 2015, but he was one of the worst hitters in baseball in 2014. So what they have to avoid is those guys regressing so badly that they return to what they were before. We need them to stay at least at a pretty high level of talent for the Royals to have success.
And, Max, as we all know, this is a copycat league. The Yankees went all in for the Royals' 3-stud bullpen idea. Dedicating that much money to high-impact innings works on paper and certainly worked for the world champions last year. But do you see this as a risky concept?
Well, it's not risky for the Yankees because I think they have the money to kind of paper over any kind of mistakes they make. So, if Chapman doesn't work out, I think they can always go out and spend more money on some other area of need. But yeah, it's interesting. We did definitely see relievers come at a price this year. I was really surprised to see Ryan Madsen, who was on the Royals last year. The Royals signed him to a minor league deal last year. He had a nice, solid season, and then Oakland rewards him with this huge, 3-year deal, which just kind of set the market for how much relievers were going to be this year. The Royals did kind of set the trend, although they've even admitted that it was kind of by accident that they were a small market team, and so they couldn't afford the big free agents, couldn't afford big starting pitchers, so they figured, well, let's try to develop and sign relievers because it's cheaper to do that. It's a good way to resurrect careers of failed starting pitchers like Wade Davis, who was a terrible starting pitcher, but turned out to be one of the most dominant relievers in baseball. So that was kind of like a market inefficiency they found by accident, and now everyone's trying to duplicate it. So, the Yankees, they have the super pen now, and I think that's going to be the bullpen of everyone's envy. But, that's only one aspect of the game, and the Royals had a good bullpen as well last year, but they still had a hit. They had to score runs last year, and they had to get decent starting pitching, which the Yankees can do those things. So, I expect that more teams will start to emphasize bullpens just because, even though the market is inflated for them, it's still a lot cheaper than going out and signing a starting pitcher. And I think the more we find out about bullpens and pitchers and how they're used, we find that starting pitchers going through the third time through the lineup is really asking for trouble. So to get a fresh reliever out there, have him fire bullets for an inning, that's going to be the strategy that a lot of teams I think are going to latch on to. So it's not a surprise to see the Yankees go out and try to kind of duplicate that performance, although with a much higher payroll.
A much higher payroll. Again, we're talking with Max Rieper of Wales Review, as Lee would say. Going back to the starting pitching, Yordan Ventura showed a lot of promise. How do you see him performing this season?
Yeah, he had a great rookie year, and then kind of last year was kind of an up and down season for him. I mean, he obviously had a lot of the kind of the shenanigans with other teams where he's throwing at guys and getting in dust-ups with Mike Trout and Brett Lawrie, and so that kind of was a distraction early in the year. But if you look at his numbers down the stretch, he really had pretty good numbers in the second half of the season, especially when you look at his strikeout totals and his fielding, independent pitching. He had a pretty solid season toward the end. So I think there are reasons to be encouraged by him, and he's still very young. And look, people say he's not up to the big games, but look, he's a guy that's pitched a lot of postseason games already at a very young age and done pretty well in most of those games. So I think he's a guy that, he needs some maturity, but I think he's a guy with a great amount of talent. He's got that 99-mile-per-hour fastball, a really good changeup, and I think he's going to have a lot of success this year. I think the Royals need him to have a lot of success this year because, like I said, the starting pitching has been kind of a weakness the last couple of years, and they really need someone to fill that role as like the ace pitcher, the guy that can just take the ball and be, at least close to an all-star level pitcher. So, I think he's kind of a guy to kind of keep your eye on for the Royals, a guy that has a lot of upside, but also that is going to be key to the Royals' success this year.
Are there any talking about keeping up their successes, keeping the success going? Is there any breakout seasons you expect for anybody?
Well, Ventura would be probably the first guy I'd look out for that. I think the other guy they really want to take a step forward is Danny Duffy, who is a young left-handed pitcher. I say young, but he's actually like 27 now. But he's a guy that, and he may not even make the rotation. I think they're kind of debating whether or not they want him to start or relieve, because I think he can be an excellent relief pitcher. Because in short outings he does very well. He can really amp it up. He's a very emotional guy on the mound, gets really amped up, and that can be to his detriment when he starts because he's kind of finished by the fifth or sixth inning and has trouble finishing guys off at that point. So I think they see him as a guy that still has upside, that needs to kind of take a step forward, show himself as a solid starting pitcher. He's got pretty good numbers. I think he has a 3.16 ERA over the last 3 years as a starter. So he's done it, but just not on a very consistent basis. He's not a guy that you can count on for 200 innings. He's not even really a guy you can count on for like 180 innings right now. So they need him to show some more consistency, but I think if he does that, he can be a pretty solid high upside guy. Starting lineup-wise, I think we kind of saw what those guys can do last year. If there's a guy that had any kind of upside, I think you might look for maybe a guy like some of the prospects, like maybe a Raul Mondesi, who's probably a year away, but if he has a good year in the minors, you could see him maybe come up late in the year and still in at second base for the Royals. He's really a shortstop, but since they have Escobar there already, he would slide over to second base and fill in for probably Omar Infante or Christian Colon, who are kind of underwhelming options at that position. So he's our best prospect in the system. I think if you see him come up late in the year, he could impress, but he hasn't really put up very good numbers in the minors so far. He's been very, very young and, quite frankly, a little overwhelmed by each level. So I think probably the upside is in the starting pitching, just because they weren't very good last year and they need to take a step forward in 2016.
I almost started laughing, Max, because you led into the next question, and you've done that on every team. And it's just you're either psychic or you wrote this for us. But you're talking about the farm system and Mondesi. Like farm system, they're down to 23rd now in ranking because they've made so many moves the past few years. How long do you think it's going to be before we see, like, quote, the next man up?
Yeah, it's pretty thin right now, and I think 4 or 5 years ago they had the best farm system in baseball, according to Baseball America. Right. But all those guys graduated. They came up and won a World Series. Guys like Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas and Danny Duffy. And so now things are pretty thin. And they had a couple decent prospects left last year, but they ended up trading Sean Manaea, who's a very good young pitcher, to the Oakland Athletics for Ben Zobrist. Then traded Cody Reed over to the Cincinnati Reds for Johnny Cueto. So that kind of left them very thin, especially in the pitching market. And they've had some poor drafts the last couple of seasons. I think some of the magic of Dade Moore, and every general manager will have ups and downs in the draft, but he's kind of missed in the last couple of drafts. So they've got their work cut out for them, and they don't have a first-round pick this year because they signed Ian Kennedy, which that was source of a little bit of criticism, at least on our website, just because when you have to look, when you're a small market team, you have to constantly look at the future and at the draft. And so they're going to be the big disadvantage without a first-round pick. They also they went over the limit as far as international spending last year, so that means they're handicapped this year. They won't be able to offer anyone more than $300,000 starting in July. So they've got kind of their hands tied, at least this year. And the upper levels are very thin right now. We've got Raul Mondesi, like I mentioned, and that's about it. They've got a pitcher by the name of Kyle Zimmer, who has great talent. Everyone says, yeah, he could be a number one pitcher, but he can't stay on the field. He has just been beset by all kinds of injuries. He's a guy, if he's healthy this year, you could see him in the rotation, or maybe the bullpen. But he has not pitched more than, I think, 60 innings in a season, so he's not, we're not going to count on him for anything this year. So, and after that, it gets very thin. You're talking about guys that are maybe role players, the big leagues. Maybe one of those guys will kind of break through, like Lorenzo Cain, who wasn't a very well-regarded prospect and become something big. But right now, they've got a 2-year window where they need to win with these major league players, because after that, a lot of these guys are eligible for free agency after the 2017 season. And then so you're looking at probably a total rebuild at that point. And right now, they don't have the farm system to do a rebuild. They may have to trade some of these guys eventually to kind of get that process going. Otherwise, it's going to be a couple more lean years, which we're used to, frankly. So, we'll take it. I'm not complaining about the state of the farm system since we won a World Series, but they will certainly have their work cut out for them when it comes to developing the farm system again.
Yeah, well, the farm system, like you said, the farm system got you Cueto, got you Zobrist, so in effect the farm system got you the championship. Not that they won it, but that wouldn't have happened without those two guys among several others. And to your point about the guy only pitching 60 innings, that's almost as not durable as Lee, so that's kind of scary. One last question for you. A lot of pundits, of course, they've got the Royals taking a step back. Lee, was it Sports Illustrated or ESPN or USA Today, they have them picked to go last? That's insane.
Baseball Prospectus had
that. Yeah, Baseball Prospectus is the Dakota system. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Okay, so obviously I hope you don't agree with that. How do you think they're going to finish this year?
Yeah, those Dakota standings were the source of a lot of ire and I guess controversy here because they picked the Royals to win 75, 72. They picked them to win 72 games last year, and of course the Royals won 95. So, it's not like we take those too seriously. And to Baseball Prospectus' credit, a lot of the authors came on and said, we don't believe the Royals are this bad. The numbers do, and that means there's something wrong with our numbers or something about the Royals that that kind of confound our numbers, which I think is probably true. I think their model, the Royals model, is not really well suited for their kind of projection system. So, I'm happy with that. I mean, I'd rather have a real championship than a PECOTA standings championship. So, yeah, I expect a little regression just because, number one, it's hard to win 3 straight pennants. I mean, we haven't seen too many teams do that recently. And we've seen teams like the Giants and the Red Sox take a step backwards after winning it, and I think that's kind of not unexpected. Like I said, a lot of the Royals hitters had career years last year. On the one hand, they're young, so maybe that's a new level of performance for them. But on the other hand, we've seen guys, kind of have career years and then, drop back to more normal levels a lot of times. So I don't think that would be too surprising if, like, Lorenzo King was still a good hitter, but not, the third in MVP battling again. I don't think that would surprise anyone in the slightest. So, they, like I said, they need the starting pitching to get better, I think, because the offense will regress a little bit. And, there are a lot of question marks in that rotation. And so, I kind of expect some regression. The Central Division looks better. I don't think, Detroit was pretty lousy last year, and I don't expect them to be lousy this year. I think Cleveland's going to be better. I think the White Sox could be a little bit better. So it's going to be a tough division. And you look around the American League, there really aren't any bad teams, at least not like there are in the National League. You look at the National League, there are like 4 or 5 teams you could point out and say that team's going to lose 100 games. In the American League, I don't see anyone that's really obvious candidate to lose 90, 100 or even 95 games. So there's going to be a lot of mediocre teams, and I think that's going to, that's good that the race is wide open, but it's also kind of bad because there's no one you can kind of beat up on. So, I expect it to be pretty tough. I expect the Royals to be probably in the high 80s as far as win total, kind of right there with Cleveland and maybe Detroit as far as battling for the Central. But, this is a team that's confounded projections and predictions every year, and I think they wear that as a on their sleeve as a badge of honor. And, they're going to go out and try to prove everyone wrong, and I'll be glad if they do. I think last year I only picked them for like 82 wins, and they ended up winning 95. So I would like to be pleasantly surprised and see them win 95 games again, and become the first team since the Yankees to win back-to-back titles. But that's very hard, like I said. And but sometimes unexpected things happen in sports.
Well, one thing that's not unexpected is your wonderful ability to speak words and make them come out of your mouth and make them sound great, unlike all of us. Really, it's terrific when we have you on, Max. Thanks so much for being on. Where can our thousands and thousands, it's actually 7, listeners find your work?
Thanks for the kind words. You can read all the latest Royals news and our discussion of the PECOTA standings at RoyalsReview.com. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Royals Review. And we welcome any Royals fans or non-Royals fans that want to talk about the team and how they're going to do this year.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Enjoy spring training.
Thanks.
Yeah, Max he's always fantastic.
Lee, that was your close? Yeah. Yep. Really?
Well, I thought we talking.
Yes, I know why. Because yes, I know why.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes, real quick. No, it's okay. We did mention let's do this. Let's do our predictions real fast. Kind of threw that at you guys because I'm an idiot. I'll do mine real fast. This is how I predict the order. So this means nothing, and it means the total opposite will happen. Yes, of the Oscars. That's next week. But the predicted finish of the AL Central. I have the Royals, then the Indians, then the Twins, then the Tigers, and then the White Sox. And any of those teams could win the division because it's a really tough division. I mean, not great teams. Well, the Royals may be great again, who knows. But not any really bad teams either. So that's my prediction. Royals, Indians, Twins, Tigers, White Sox. What do you think, Todd?
Tigers. And then, actually, I think the Royals will repeat, and I'm really hoping that the Tigers will actually come in second, and then the Indians, and then after that, who cares? Because what does it matter? But yeah, you're right. Any of those teams, if things break right and break wrong for some others, I mean, it wouldn't even shock me to see the Twins win because odd things happened last year, as we saw. So how would that be a shock? It wouldn't be at this point. I expect it to be the Royals, but could be anybody in that division.
KC all the way.
Okay, Casey. And
Ted always roots for his conquerors.
Oh, I thought Ted was talking about a Sunshine Band. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Come on.
Hey, Mike, I wish make a quick point about something that Max brought up about the PECOTA. You know, you don't want to win the PECOTA standings, and of course, there's been a lot of talk. Like Charles Barkley famously said, "Is like analytics, whatever. Who cares?" And obviously, the analytics were way off on the Royals. But his point was that their model, the Royals model, doesn't fit those projections the way they work because they play a very different type of baseball than most teams. Those models, the projections are built on the way baseball usually works. They don't play the way baseball usually works, and I think that's why those projections were off. It's not bad analytics; it's a bad application of it. So.
No, yeah, and I agree. And most of the time the teams top out at 92 and they don't lose more than 72. It's usually right in between, or they don't win less than 72, I should say. So it's right in between. Just looking at PECOTA real fast because we only have a couple of minutes left. The Mets are expected to win the East with 91 wins, followed by the Nationals, and then it falls off to the Marlins. The Phillies, they have losing 97 games, so they must be really bad. And then the funny thing about the National League Central is the Cubs have 92 wins. Okay, second place, and this is the division where we saw three teams make the playoffs, all really, really good teams last year, mid-90s and up. The next second best team in the NL Central, according to PECOTA, is 83 and 79, and that's the Pirates.
Stop.
So, yeah, the Cardinals 82 and 80, and the
Come
team
on.
with the team. It's not me, Ted. I mean, they do call me Mr. PECOTA at work, but because they don't know my real name. But yeah, the Dodgers are PECOTA.
PECOTA.
Awesome.
Sorry.
So the Dodgers are expected to win the most at 94 with 94 wins, and then the Giants. That's Clayton Kershaw right there thanking us. And then this is the thing: the Royals are expected to win only 76 games, as he said. You know, a lot of these things could go either way, but the funny thing for me was, who do you think is expected to win the AL East, and how many wins do you think they're expected to get? Todd?
Well, it's got to be the Rays. The Rays with 90, I'm guessing, because it makes no sense.
It's got to be the Orioles all the way.
Okay. Well, Todd was extremely close. It is the Rays with 91 wins. That's what they have them projected. No, and the Orioles actually have winning 72 games, losing 90.
Come on.
I'm
in
a
the
stat
world?
head. I love stats. I love sabermetrics, but too often people forget that there are people who create those numbers. It's about more than the numbers. I mean, it's like we talked about clutch performance. Oh, yeah, it does exist. Just because you can't measure it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, and there is such a thing as team chemistry, just like there is in any work environment. So that's why, I mean, the numbers are important. You got to look at the numbers, but that's not where, like Ted said, is like basically, come on, man.
What are we talking about? So,
practice? We're talking about Mr. PECOTA?
You're telling me, based on this, the NL Central is the most dominant division, and you have them only winning 91 games? Come on, stop. These guys, they were the toast of the town. They're like the NFC West in football. Come on. Well, like how the NFC West used to be.
Yeah, like it used to be.
Mr. the doctor says, come on, you heard that.
That's our show. That should be it. Again, we'd like to thank Max Rieper of Royals Review for being on. Ted, what's happening with Late Night Parents Wednesday?
Oh, we're talking about hoverboards. We're talking about hoverboards and that industry, if it even still exists on Wednesday. We're going to have Mr. Tony Lee, CEO of GlideTech. He will be joining us to talk about hoverboard safety. I'm like, do you really want to come on and talk about this? But
did you say Tony Lee?
Tony Lee.
Don't you have a friend named Tony Lee, Todd?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Tony Lee. I didn't know he made hoverboards. Usually he just makes sarcastic comments. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's going to be on. So I think we'll patch you in, Todd, on the show. But we have a few other guests that are also coming on. But hey, I just want to. Sorry to hijack the show. I see you're globetrottingly and visiting baseball teams. On what happy hour budget are you doing this, and how come you didn't invite Todd and myself?
Well, because it's the happy hour budget only goes to how do I say this? The account got messed up, and for some reason, all the money funneled to me. So I decided to go to Arizona because it's nice temperature right now, and it never rains. We have 8 inches of rain a year. So no, I think the thing, and we'll just spend a minute talking about this. I think the great thing about Grapefruit League is the fact that all the teams that I can see, like the Cubs are, every team is close, within 45 miles. I could drive and see all the teams in the Grapefruit League. But in Florida, Todd, right, they're all spread out, right? So it would take lots of driving, right? Okay.
Yes, they are spread out. It's actually, it goes from as far south as Boynton Beach and as far north as Everett, Washington. So it's kind of a drive. It's kind of a drive. Not quite that bad, but yeah, it's all over the state. It's not like it is in Arizona, which is why a lot of the teams, several, of course, they've left Florida and they go to Arizona because of the logistics. They're all right there. I mean, it's a simpler process. That's because Arizona has no water. There's like one well, and they get like 6 gallons a year, and they all got to live there.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm going out west, quote unquote, to see the Mariners and Dodgers and Padres tomorrow. In Peoria, which is 30 minutes away. And that's, except for one other team, which is just a little bit beyond them, that's the furthest team from where I currently am. And the Angels, like I said, I'm walking over to the Angels. And I could do the same thing. I could just jog, really, to the, and it wouldn't even really be that bad of a jog, to the Cubs and everybody else in the world. So
they're in the lobby. You told me last night they're in the lobby of your hotel.
There is, I believe, Sandy Alomar Jr. is in my hotel, but I'm afraid to say, excuse me, are you Sandy Alomar? And I have a friend, Christian, who's really outgoing, who's also here, and I'm be like, hey, Christian, can you just go over and ask? He'll be like, yeah, I'll ask that guy. So yeah, he'll probably do it in Spanish because he's from Mexico. So
just go tell him, hey, Sandy, how are you? Sign my head for me. Sandy, I'll never watch again.
I do have my cell phone, and maybe it's on record, but let me ask you a few questions. I would never do that. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks, Joel, who's listening right now. Thank you for listening, as always. Any final words, guys?
Go Hawks.
Miami Brewing Company is an excellent provider of beer. Yes, and go
Miami
Hawks.
Brewing Company is an excellent provider of beer. We should tweet that out every day. Hint, hint, hint this week. So, anyway, I'll see the Mariners and Dodgers.
Let's go, Mets.
Their outro, which is, of course, the Mets lost. The
fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby. With Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field.